What's up, everybody? Welcome to Leaders of Lifestyle, a podcast all about real estate, sports, and entertainment. Take a deep dive with me into the world of high-end lifestyle and get exposed to the different leaders behind the scenes of it all. So let's get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the world famous Ben Moss. Thank you so much for being here, Ben.
Michael, thanks for having me. Excited about being here with you.
So we have a lot to talk about, but before we get into it, I am a Compass agent. You are a Compass agent, but you have a special distinction that works so well with what we're going to be talking to today. Give everybody your title.
Well, yeah, so I'm the National Director of the Sports and Entertainment Division at Compass. So I joined Compass in 2017, and I've got a lot of background in sports entertainment, real estate, and then focused a lot on luxury real estate as well.
Yes, and you are amazing at what you do. That's why you're the head of that division. And, you know, I take a lot of path from what you have paved, and we have a lot to learn about you and so much to learn throughout this podcast today. So let's get right into it. Talk a little bit about your beginning in the real estate field. I know, like a lot of people in real estate, doesn't always start off with, I want to be a real estate agent as a kid. So how did you get into the real estate world?
Yeah, I mean, going back to the sports side, I kind of think of myself as a jock first and foremost. I wake up in the morning and I try to move the body, and I think that's so important because it gives you energy and helps clear your mind and all these other things. But I did not think I was going to be a realtor when I grew up. My dream was to be an NBA player, and then I quickly found out, I was very tall, and they stuck me as a kid, and they stuck me at center, so I didn't develop the ball handling skills. And then everybody else caught up to me and grew past me. I'm almost 6'2", so I'm not like, but definitely not center material or forward in college and NBA. But I graduated college, and I was originally going to go into finance. I was working at Merrill Lynch in college and at a bank, and went abroad, Argentina and Spain, and worked at banks. And in the summer, mostly had fun, but did some work too. And then I went to a real estate seminar, one of these investing seminars, 3-day kind of thing where they teach you how to knock on doors and flip houses. So I went out and started knocking on doors and flipped the house, bought a 12-unit apartment building, fixed it up, sold it. So I got into real estate right then. But professionally, I got into commercial office leasing. I was working at a real estate investment bank my last year in college, my first year out of college. Didn't want to sit behind a desk in a conference room putting together, pitch books that are this big. So I wanted to get more in the action, do deals. And so I got into office leasing, which was a great entrance, great entry point into real estate because I negotiated 100 deals a year. From the 100,000 square foot law firm to the 500 square foot cafeteria at the bottom of the building. And, but quickly found that I was getting a little bit bored with that. And at the time I was in a relationship with who would become my first wife, and she got her residential real estate license to, when I was knocking on doors, investing in real estate, I was the bad cop, she could be the good cop, or actually vice versa. I'm not sure who's the bad or the good, but one was going to have a license and one wasn't going to have a license at the time. So she was the one designated to have the license, and she started doing some residential. And then I started helping her with some stuff and quickly found that a lot of the sports entertainment clients that we had were going pro. We went to University of Miami. Yep. And so they always kind of knew us as the real estate couple. And we'd go hang out with them on Thursday nights and go party in the Grove, in Coconut Grove, where we all hang out together. But then we'd also talk some shop, and they knew me as the guy who'd come to school in my suit and take the Metro Rail to go downtown and work, and knew I was doing some stuff in real estate, and she was too. So make a long story short, they started asking for advice. Hey, could you review this contract for me in Jacksonville? I'm going to build a house. Can you hook me up with a realtor in Denver? And I saw an opportunity very early on, which was to be a value. And I said, okay, yeah, I'll figure that out for you. Let me interview some realtors in Denver for you. And yeah, you're going to get ripped off on this contract here in Jacksonville. So it was literally one deal to 2 deals to 3 deals and referrals. And that's kind of how it all started.
So it really legitimately started in the purest form of being around the people that you had the opportunity, eventually around the people that you're going to end up working with, which are talent, either in the sports or entertainment world. And they looked at you as a position of authority and asked questions. So you did it from networking from day one, really.
Yeah, it was networking, but it wasn't intentional. I saw an opportunity. I think a lot of things that happen in life, sometimes we're just so busy, we're on the phone, we're doing 5 things at one time, and we're not even aware of where the opportunities are.
Right.
So I was aware of where the opportunities were, and I kind of said, hey, here's a segment that needs to be served.
Right.
And I'm kind of right here. And so why not? So we started carving out that niche, back then. And then using that as a way to get in front of people that have maybe a sports court at their house or whatever that they think might sell to a real, to an athlete. And then people started kind of hearing, hey, started calling me up saying, hey, I think my house would sell to an athlete. I hear you're the guy that works with athletes. So why don't you come list my house? And so that started happening a few years after. But rewinding all the way to the beginning, I think, Michael, the most important point is just developing trust, because these guys wouldn't have reached out to me if they didn't trust me and if I wasn't kind of walking the walk, but they knew I was out knocking on doors. They knew I was buying an apartment building. They knew I was doing things. And so they kind of said, okay, he's a guy that I can trust. He's not just wanting to hang out with us. He's wanting, he's in the trenches doing this, and we trust him.
How did you, I mean, it's fascinating. How did you, in the very beginning, because now, I mean, you've been so successful that now people are going to reach out to you because they see what you've done in the press. They can see you through your marketing and everything and what you've become. In the beginning, when you said you were going after, let's say in the sports world, someone with a court, basketball, tennis, what have you, and you thought it might trade well with somebody else looking for that exact product. How did you set out to almost target that person? Did you have a dossier somewhere? Did you start to promote somewhere to people? How did you do that?
Well, I think, it should be clear, whenever you think like Jerry, I'm a big Grateful Dead fan, right? So Jerry's like, when life looks like easy street, there's danger at your door. So if you start, thinking you're, don't stink, then there's a problem, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, I think we're always striving in this business, yes, like had a great sale, that was good, but there's always the challenge. There's always the way to evolve. And I think that's the thing I love most about this real estate business. So yeah, looking back, I've been doing this for 20 years. So it's, it's been little by little, building. Have I done some cold calling? Have I sat in front of somebody's office, in their lobby waiting for them to come in? Yeah, I've done all that stuff.
Sure.
Do I like the cold call? No. But do I see that as a challenge, kind of taken in the sports, the competitive nature of sports? Yeah, a little bit. So I think, I don't want anybody to think that any of that's easy. You gotta, there was a guy that I got as a client 10 years later. Right. So, there's a lot of that stuff that's happening. And now he's a sports agent. Now he's referring me to some people. So, it takes a long time in this business. So people just read some of that stuff, and a lot of it's frustrating because you can't even put it out there. A lot of my clients are buying, through protected, land trusts and LLCs and things like that. So I can't even talk about some of that stuff. But I think to answer your question, people did start approaching me because there was some press and there were some things that got out there and the word would kind of get out. So it's always that balance of trying to, figure out the right way to do some self-promotion without interfering with the clients that I'm actually working with. Because I don't want them to ever think that I'm using them as a means to an end for something else.
Sure. And you've had a ton of success. You're an authority in the field. Speak to how you went from the early days of, people knowing what you're doing, networking, word of mouth, all the way up to being a super successful luxury broker, and at the highest end in a South Florida area that is super competitive, with the best of the best. How did you get yourself to stand above the rest and then lean that into the Compass director position?
Well, so I guess just on the sports side, just, one deal, two deals, like I said, now, I kind of lost count at a certain point, but it's like over 550 deals. Now that includes rentals, that's in South Florida, that's referrals outside of South Florida. But at any point in time, I probably have 2 to 3 referrals coming in, like athletes or celebrities, every week. Sometimes it's more. Sometimes it's like 5 or 6 in a week, and I'm like, how did that just happen?
And this is friends and families, professional
relationships, referrals from existing clients, business managers, sports agents, financial advisors. That's a lot of my network are the professionals around the athletes, and then obviously with some of the athletes as well. And I've been doing education, so it's not just I do education for NFL teams. I'm finishing writing a book, like a playbook for athletes, because I've seen so much and it just starts driving me crazy at a certain point. Man, I got to do something more than just get in front of these guys for 45 minutes to an hour. I got to write a book. I got to get this out there, and I'm going to give it to them. And so there's a lot of stuff. I've always tried to keep evolving, and I think if like anything, if you're genuine about what you're doing and you're enjoying what you're doing, at a certain point you will be successful because you're putting the right energy behind it, and then people start noticing, and things just kind of, it seems like it's easy, but it's not. It takes a lot of hard work, and I think, looking back for me, it's been more about just being creative. Maybe I could be doing 5 times the business that I'm doing if I was better at A, B, C, and D. But I'm just trying to do the best I can with all the moving parts, and it's a work in progress. But yeah, no, at the end of the day, I have a great career. I love it. It's very rewarding, financially. Meeting people, getting to be creative every day. So
when you were doing the education for the pro teams and becoming the authority within those niche groups and everything like that, were you doing, or are you doing, direct marketing to pro teams, or were you a guest invited to just do education there?
Yeah, it's purely coming from the standpoint of doing education, and I'm not paying a dime to be part of any of these pro teams. It's really just doing it for the right reasons, and then what happens after that happens after that. As relationships get developed, of course, when you're getting in front of, it's a great marketing tool. There's no doubt about that. But it also stems from really wanting to help these guys and putting together a really good presentation and being invited back, and then getting invited to by one guy at one team saying, hey, you should talk to this guy Ben, and getting invited to another team. I could be in front of a lot of NFL teams right now, but the truth is I don't have the time because I'm in the grind of knocking out 150 plus transactions a year with my team here, real estate transactions. So where's the time to go to San Francisco for 2 days and do a presentation?
Right.
That's the constraint. So that's what I'm trying to evolve more towards is getting even more into the creative, non-transactional side of things as I evolve in my career, because I've been doing this for 20 years now. So at a certain point, I want to keep evolving that as well and have more of an impact within sports.
So when you present with these teams, or you present whoever, or somebody would say, hey, listen, just come and talk to us. You have such a finance and money background. You understand business. Do you talk to them more about that side, or are you talking to these clients today? And I talk clients, I'm talking about either someone's high-end property or sports and entertainment type of person. Are you talking to them more about the monies, dollars and cents of buying and strategy, or are you talking about how it works, or what's more than the topic that you get called in to talk about?
Well, it's evolved over the years. My first presentation ever was 10 years ago to a pro team, and it was talking to the rookies and explaining what is a lease, who pays the realtor, what are why does credit score matter? Just very basic level things, because these guys are young kids that don't know, they didn't learn any of this stuff in college. They don't even know how to balance their checkbook, for instance. So it's like tiptoeing around some basic concepts, and it's evolved into talking to veterans who want to invest in real estate, and it's evolved from just classroom to, hey, let's get them out there and experience what it's like to be in a multifamily building that's 300 units, mid-renovation.
Right.
And getting to ask, what's a cap rate? How do you calculate a cap rate? Why does a cap rate matter? How do you improve a unit, the best bang for your buck, so that you can jack up the rent, maintain operating expenses at a certain level, and how does that translate across 300 units at the same cap rate or a lower cap rate upon exit? And so there's, it's evolved over the years and continues to evolve. And so a lot of the conversations that I have now with some of the older guys is, hey, don't, so certainly with the rookies, but the older guys too, is like, don't go out and buy the big house. Okay, yeah, I'm the residential realtor that makes my money. I monetize my relationship with you if you buy a big house from me. But the truth is, there's a time in life and in your cycle to buy the big house. And that's only after you have enough passive income coming in from investments, but real estate being a very good one, multifamily real estate in particular is a pretty safe and stable asset, and remains so even during the COVID era, as we've seen, whereas office and retail and hospitality, pretty risky, right? But multifamily, especially certain types of multifamily, continue to do really well overall for the long term. So that's what I advocate guys to do. And I have had a lot of guys invest, when I say guys, athletes, invest in deals that I'm investing with as well. But I'm not syndicating. I'm not making money from it. It's really just I have access to this deal flow, and I'm doing it myself because I don't have a contract. I don't know what I'm going to make next year, but I know I have to pay 3 salaried people and I have to pay this and that. So I came from a desire, and they also need to figure out when they transition from playing to non-playing for the rest of their lives at a young age, they got to figure out, how do I have enough good money coming in. So I'm not trying to step on the toes of a financial advisor. It's got to be part of their plan, and they have to review the numbers and review the deal with their financial advisor. But I am providing an access point to some of those guys. And who knows, maybe at one point I will do more on the investment side and kind of translate my contacts and abilities into that space on more on the investment side. But right now I'm strictly focusing on residential rentals, purchases and sales across the country.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't want these guys to, do a bad investment and then now I got an egg on my face.
Right.
I want to focus on the niche, which is what I've continued to build and focus on right now.
So the sports and entertainment national director for Compass position came up. Is the position you now have. So how did that happen?
Well, so a good buddy of mine, predating Compass, Kofi Narte, he was at the agency in LA and I was at Sotheby's and had my own company before that. And we said, oh, maybe one day we'll work together. So Kofi had the foresight to launch the sports and entertainment division at Compass. He was at Compass before I was in 2016. I think he joined. I joined in 17.
Yep.
And so he, kind of grew the division, led it, and then he left in March, and asked me if I would take it over. And at first I was kind of like, no, I don't really want to do that. I have enough stuff on my plate. And but then I said, this is going to force me to grow. This is going to force me to evolve my skill set. Really, I am probably the right person to do it because of how much experience and everything I have going on in the sports entertainment world. And I think I can kind of pick up where he left off and try to, keep things moving. So we are doing some new things within the division and trying to keep things going from where he started it. Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's perfect. Thank you for explaining kind of the story and how it happened. Big fan of Kofi, obviously big fan of you. So I think being a niche specialist in that sports and entertainment luxury real estate world, I think people have a lot of misconceptions maybe about a lot of things that maybe, and give me, tell me if I'm wrong here, but that maybe all of us, we do something completely different than anybody else when it comes to selling real estate. Like it's done differently. I think that we treat a sports and entertainment client who's looking to sell a luxury high-end property the same for all of our properties. We don't cut corners somewhere. We do the best for all of our clients, no matter what's the price point. There's certain tactics we might use for a high-end property or a luxury property on the sales side, but am I wrong? There's certain things that we'll do, but across the board, the service that we provide for a property to sell it, high-end or not, there's some basics that never change.
Yeah, there's something that never changes. I think what people don't understand about, celebrity sports is the amount of extra work that it takes to work with these clients. So, for instance, I've got a top NFL player, star player who will remain nameless, but he's been renting a place in Miami for a couple of years now. He doesn't play down here. He plays somewhere else and he's rehabbing, but he wants to buy a condo. So I went to go preview the condo, take video, do all this stuff, send it to his financial advisor, send it to a whole bunch of people to review. A few days later, it comes back, yes, we like the unit. So now on Friday, I'm going to meet with his buddy who is in town, and he's going to come take a look at the unit. So this guy will never even come see the unit.
Right.
He knows the building, he's in the building, but he won't come see the unit. So we're talking about 2 virtual showings with a guy who never will come. I have the ex-wife of a major musician coming in a couple weeks, and she's wanting to rent, and her schedule's here one day, there the next day. There, it's just like these are not necessarily people that are used to dealing with professional, deadlines and guidelines. They don't have the same mindset that you and I have, or that you have, with the same connection that you have with like a professional, white collar, business person that understands timeliness and scheduling and all these things. So there's a lot of more whimsical kind of things that come up and unrealistic expectations. You have to educate a lot more. So it's a lot more work and a lot more rentals too, because a lot of these players, especially the athletes that I work with, or even musicians that I've worked with, they're in town recording for a month, but it's got to be an amazing rental for that 1 month, and you got to go out and find it, and you're not making much money. And there's a lot more ways, as you probably know, Michael, with short-term rentals especially, it seems like there's a lot more potential for disappointment and a lot more paperwork and a lot more stress than even just doing a huge sale.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Especially if you have a pro athlete who's going to be in a free agency situation, you have to make sure the contracts are negotiated, that they're getting out of leases without having to pay penalties. Right. I think that is across the board, especially working with sports entertainment, high-end people, regardless. Sports entertainment, definitely. The privacy issue, making sure that people you are working with across, whether it's a landlord or most likely a seller agent or a buyer agent, whatever, understanding that there's going to be a level of privacy, exclusivity that's going to go on with this transaction, professionalism that needs to take place, right? There's privacy. And then at the same time, there's a concierge service to a lot of things that we're doing. We are asked to do certain things that someone around the corner might not. There's the transportation issues of car pickup, especially me being so close to New York City. Sending a car out is like, this is what you do. You send a car out to go pick them up. You make sure you have lunch available, or you make sure you have a helicopter access or plane across, if it's coming across. That's just things that are part of are what we do. So speak to sometimes that you've had to deal with that. Maybe a normal broker or somebody just doesn't understand that's a level that we deal with.
Well, yeah, I had a major athlete earlier this year, and rented a Sprinter van, the driver, the whole thing. They picked them up at the tarmac, and three times in a row, they called me the night before and said, "Oh, sorry, we can't come in tomorrow. Had an issue with the pilot."
Sure.
Okay. So scheduled, 10 showings for the next day. Literally 3 days in a row. I was literally about to, I'm trying to preserve my hair, and I was about to pull it all out.
Yeah.
You've got to be kidding.
No problem. It's fine. It's cool. That's fine.
Yeah, they just don't understand. And it makes me look really bad if I can't deliver the goods, which is having all these realtors and sellers shift everything twice to following days, and it's just talk about stress. It's just crazy. So that would never happen with a regular client. It would never happen. But I had to make it happen. I didn't have a choice. I had sports agents. I had the team. People are relying on me to make sure that this guy gets settled, because he's an important player, and he's got to get here, and things have to camp starts, and it's all got to happen the way it's going to happen. He's got to have a place to live. So it's super high stress, and that's one example. And I've had to tell other realtors on the other side, listen, no, you may not. This client's not signing this. Right. And don't ask, and I try to let people know ahead of time. You kind of know who you're dealing with before you go into the showing. If it's somebody that deals with the same kind of clients, they'll get it. But if it's not, got to make sure that we set those expectations up front.
Sure. So speaking a little bit more about, the going forward a little bit in here as to the expectations, you lay them out for the people that you're working across the aisle with, right? For your clientele, you also kind of have to set some expectations too. Like we're kind of talking about, when you are working on high end, there's a lot of people that want to vet other people. So there's a whole lot of making sure that people have to be in certain places, certain times for both sides to be credible in something. If somebody no-shows a lot, it's if somebody is fully qualified, ready to buy, has cash, ready to do something, it's a client in sports entertainment. And there's a seller and they have to no-show a couple times. So there's this breaking of the ice. It's I know that I have to be extremely respectful, but I also have to tell them the truth in some of this and lay this straight out there for them. How much and how often are you working directly with the entertainer or the athlete or the person? And how much are you working, say, with an assistant or something that you're kind of relaying messages?
I usually try to work with the source because, meaning the athlete, the person who's buying, because I want to develop that relationship. But sometimes, what you find is it takes a while for them to develop that trust with me. Right. And it's only through seeing a bunch of emails go out and just this consistency where they finally say, okay, you know what, I'm going to deal with this guy directly. And sometimes it's a combination of that and just getting further along in the process where they actually get a spark and they want to take accountability and some control. Right. Some of the younger ones, especially the high draft picks, the ones that everybody's been catering to since they were in middle school, those are the guys that I'm talking about. It's a little bit harder for them sometimes to understand. They also don't know what they don't know. Right. And so, they're totally intimidated by this, but they come off as, kind of cocky or whatever. Some of them are, it's a combination, but the intimidation factor, they're making all this money. They don't know who to trust. It's a lot. And so I've seen it enough times where I don't take it personally. I just try to say, look, I'm here to deliver service. I'm here, trust me, but let me earn your trust.
Right.
And but usually with the athletes, there's going to be other layers of people, and I'm used to that. And so, you have to dot the I's across the T's, make sure that, there's no mistakes in anything.
Right.
You just have to be extra careful because, if you're sloppy, that's when things get noticed, and you're not going to get the next referral from that advisor.
Going through a sale, putting a property up, doing a pre-marketing analysis, then going up, marketing the property, networking with the property, sending out the right content to the right people. We've done that. We know how paperwork works. We know that process. Same thing on the buy side, vetting, going through the properties, making sure they're what your client wants. So they come out here and spend the right amount of time on the properties that they want to see, lease, putting them in the right, doing all the documentation. We know how to do all that stuff. It's interesting. And unless you have been in it, for a lot of people, I think they don't understand, there is a level of pressure that comes into the same things you've done 550 times, right? Over and over and over again. But when you work with that person who now has an organization behind them, depending on you to do a lot of these things, and they live their life and they're focusing on what they're supposed to be focusing on, which is their day-to-day operations of being successful in that sports or entertainment world or whatever, or that finance if they're a high-end person. And here's this pressure on you now for all these different things. I think there's a skill to being able to deal with that pressure for that situation in the same thing we've always done. But I think for a lot of people that would break them. A lot of people and they're too scared of that moment and that pressure. And I think that's why also people don't try to become and go into that niche, because if you're able to show that you're successful handling that high stress, high pressure situation with those clientele, that group of people becomes smaller and smaller that have been able to do that. And that's why you've been able to be expanding. So how do you deal with that when you're up against it and you know it and you're just like, oh man, I can't really make a mistake here. I don't really, how do you handle those moments? Because as realtors, especially at the high end, those are big commission checks. Those are big clientele. It's a big reputation. How do you handle it when it gets a little shaky?
Yeah, well, I've learned early on, Michael, to have longevity in this business and to stay sane and not burn out. You can't get too high, you can't get too low. You just got to roll with the punches, and you can't try. I think a lot of suffering comes from resistance. So, where is the resistance here? Am I going to resist something that I can't control? Okay, let me get upset. This sucks. Let me get upset and go into it, and let me move on. And I think there's a big, over the years, I've developed, I don't know if spiritual practice is the right word, but, really a lot of personal development work on myself. I get up early. I'm a routine guy. Meditation, affirmations, I move energy in the body, I do breath work, like all these things, right? Gratitude practice.
Yep.
And what I found is that those things really do help in the moment. It just helps slow everything down. Like Victor, I don't know if you ever read Viktor Frankl's book, Man Search for Meaning, but he talks about, creating the space between the stimulus and the response, and just noticing how, okay, this just happened. Somebody just dropped the F-bomb, like whatever's happening, and trying to understand like where they're coming from, be empathetic. It's like all these things, it's like you're slowing it down in the matrix a little bit, and like you're seeing things happening more like when you're in the zone, because you know what? I'm not going to get rattled by what's happening here.
Right.
Or 50 voice messages or 50 text messages and 5 voice messages that I have to respond to while this is happening. And the other client who's calling on the deal that I'm dealing with this fire before I can call him on that fire. It's a lot. So, but at the end of the day, I also try to take the position of, like none of this really matters. Like at the end of the day, really, like, is anybody going to remember this transaction or even you remember me 50 years after I'm dead? Probably not. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like none of it's just an illusion, So like, that helps me also realize like, dude, why are you taking yourself so seriously? Like, so we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and stress for sure. But I think in the great, it's about context.
Right. Right. Beautiful. Well said. Let's touch base and talk a little bit about here. 2020, crazy year.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure the clientele that you work with probably ask all the questions. How's the market? Buy side, sell side, wherever. 2021, it's impossible to anybody knows, for sure, I get it. But what are you telling your client on the sell, on the buy, on the rent side? And I guess on the invest side, what are you telling your clients in the different parts coming from your position and authority in real estate? What are you telling them, advising them to do or not do or look out for?
Well, you know what's interesting on that question? Usually I'm the contrarian. I'm the guy who's been waiting for things to tank for 2 years,
Yeah.
and it hasn't happened. And now I actually don't think it's going to happen. I think, I think we're going to ride this thing through. I think, markets, business people like certainty.
Yeah.
What we've seen, irrespective of political leanings, what we've seen with the current administration, with Trump is uncertainty. You don't know what you're going to get, literally from one day or 1 week to the next.
Right.
So it's hard for businesses to make investments. And this is what I'm hearing from, wealthy clients of mine who are running businesses and who are making these decisions is, no, now at least we know what we're going to get with Biden and his team coming in. So now you will see business investment happen around the context of the environment that we're in. And I think, listen, I'm bullish long-term in terms of growth. We have more people. We have just all these technologies from, green energy to the tech, to biotech, to, AI. I mean, all these things that are happening in our world, and there's so much opportunity, so much growth. So I think certain places are going to suffer though. I mean, I do think out West, it's drier. There's water scarcity over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Sea level rise where I am in South Florida. So okay, where do you figure out where's the value? Are you making a midterm investment or decision? Are you making a long-term investment and decision?
Right.
So there's just so many factors, but I'm pretty bullish, at least on South Florida into 2021. And I don't see this market abating. It's a strong seller's market. We're going to continue to see people moving here. Texas, Tennessee, Florida are really benefiting. I mean, I've heard Vegas is as well, and Nevada, a lot of these, no state income tax states. And I'm just lucky to be here, honestly. I mean, I'm lucky to be in South Florida riding the wave. And it's been my best year ever from a real estate perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. For a lot of us. Yeah. I mean, COVID, not COVID, whatever. I mean, we work hard and this has been a crazy year.
Yeah.
Good one. So advising your clients in this current market, what if they're saying to you, yeah, but Lamar, everybody, everything is looking so great. These prices, everybody's getting everything. There's no houses on the market. There's no inventory. If I buy right now, am I overpaying?
Well, I would tell somebody, if you're buying right now, don't think you're going to sell it in 2 or 3 years, because you don't know what's going to happen that far out. I think 2021, probably 2022 is going to once people are mostly vaccinated by the middle of next year, ideally, hopefully, maybe Q2, Q3.
Right.
So I think then 2022 is going to be another stellar year because things are really going to open back up then. So for the next couple of years, I do see an appreciating market in places like Florida. And I think people are going to come back to the cities also. So whereas New York City might be hurting right now, I mean, people have a short memory. If anything we know about our culture is just,
the news cycle
really
is
quickly.
We're out of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to see a lot of rebound in areas that are suffering right now. I think places like South Florida will continue to benefit, but it's got to be at least a 5-year decision. I mean, if you're not ready to kind of ride this wave for the next 5 years, I think, maybe you rent.
Right. So you see the reciprocal market from New York to Florida being even stronger for you guys because so many has left. And yeah, people do have a short mindset, but from what I'm seeing for the way that the New York City market has been, from a political standpoint, how they treated the city, how it's kind of looking like this is evolving into a little bit, and the amount of lease that has left New York City, business that has left New York City, resident that has left New York City. I know that $1 million to $2 million, $2.5 million price point is still okay because young residents are like, great, you don't want to live there, I'll buy it up.
Yeah.
But it's the rental market there that New York City is such a rental market heavy driven area that the rental market didn't do well with all the lease issues. So Florida must have just been like, come on down, and my guess is probably along with you is that you're going to see that wave. And if you're not ready to invest in the ups or possible downs of what a V could look like, you might not want to make that decision to go buy there right now. If you're a pro athlete right now and you're like, listen, I'm on a 1 to 2 year kind of thing. Are you saying and they really found the property. They love it. They love the property, but it's kind of tighter on the budget, but they love it. Do they buy, or do you say, yeah, you still within that? If you don't know if you're going to be here in a year or two, I don't know if I would buy, you'd rent. How do you advise them?
Yeah, it depends what kind of property. I mean, if it's a more modest purchase that is in a good rental market and can become part of the rental portfolio, if that's what they want to do, then that's a consideration. Certainly luxury properties are harder to move. I mean, right now it's crazy because we've gone from many luxury markets in South Florida that are at a 3-year supply down within 1 year, within less than a year, down to like a 4 to 5 month supply.
Yep.
With prices appreciating. It's just, I've never seen anything like it. And I've been doing this for years. So it's a crazy thing. But generally, yeah, I would advise an athlete certainly always to live below the means and really spend most of the time. I mean, listen, if you have a $100 million contract, you can pretty much buy whatever you want as long as you're being responsible with the rest of it. But, you know, for the typical athlete, especially like NFL player, that sort of thing, you know, they really shouldn't be going big anyway, even if they have a huge contract, because it's not guaranteed. So every situation is different. But I've had situations where I've advised clients, you know, athletes who are going to rent maybe for 3 or 4 years before they then build or buy their dream house. You know, hey, why don't you buy this house in this neighborhood? This thing is not, you know, you're going to spend $100,000 a year for the next 4 years renting the kind of house you want.
Right.
Well, for like $800,000, you can buy a pretty nice house that you're happy with. This house is not going to go to $400,000. I don't care how bad the market gets. There's no way this house is going to go to $400,000.
It's safe.
And so, you know, even if it has a really bad outcome, you know, maybe you drop a couple $100,000, but you're not out $400,000. So in some cases, it actually makes sense for them to buy. And that kind of house would trade because it's the lower priced house within a very nice neighborhood up to like $2 million. I'm thinking of one specific example. Right. And the financial advisor said, yeah, this makes sense. Actually, this is a much better financial situation than renting. So it's not always that somebody should rent either.
Right. Right. So if a client is, what would you say when clients work with you, what would you say their biggest expectation of you is?
Just that I'll shoot them straight, that I'll tell them the way it is, you know, and advise them. And I think I'm a pretty good negotiator, and I think I'm pretty good at finding off markets because of relationships and, you know, pretty good at all these things. But I think the biggest thing is that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the opposite side, what would you tell everyone? When you work with me, you get this. This is but my highest level is this. This is the best thing that I bring to the table.
I think it's a skill set. It's a personality also. It's, you know, do you feel good? You feel energized when you're dealing with somebody, or do they deflate you?
Right.
Do they return your phone call? I mean, some of it's just like basic real estate 101, right? I mean, so if we can get that stuff right, we'll be doing okay. Right. But then at a higher level, yeah, it's what kind of, I want to always be seen as an advisor. I don't want to be the guy who's just, yeah, this house sold for that and that house sold for that, so therefore this house. No, I want to have it on writing. I want there to be an analysis. I want there to be effort put forth. And I think the clients understand when you care about your craft, when you do things with grace. You know, I know we both have small kids, so I tell my kids every day, do it with grace. You know, you may not want to have to do this right now, but if you're going to wash the dishes, well, you know what? Scrape the peanut butter off the plate before you stick it in the dishwasher. You know, like little things. Again, going back to resistance, don't resist it. Do it with grace. Do a good job. It comes through. People understand. They see it. You don't have to tell them.
How old are your kids again?
Sometimes they don't appreciate it, but 2 and 5.
So I got 3 and 5. And I think the 5-year-old, if I said, do it with grace, he would say, you're right, Dad. I would do it. I think if I told my 3-year-old, do it with grace, he'd kick me in the knee. Probably. Really hard.
Yeah, 2 and 3 is probably
2 and 3, yeah.
difficult. They kind of, but they'll surprise me. They'll say stuff. Sometimes I'm like, wow, she's really, my daughter is too. She'll repeat stuff like that. She may not understand what it means. My 5-year-old, he knows more or less what it means because we've had enough good discussions about it, you know, where he kind of gets it. But yeah, just trying to drill that in. But it's like, we're just big kids at the end of the day, you know. We just have to live what we're telling our kids to live by as well. We have to be consistent.
Yeah. Dude, I have to say, you know, coming to this company, knowing you were in this position, knowing this is my niche and the path that I enjoy and that I love and that I want to grow within, and getting this opportunity to this is the first time we've ever spoke, and to do this. And I'm hoping we have many more conversations. I want to just say that, how lucky I am to be able to get to talk with you, work with you, and how much knowledge you have and just how much of a down-to-earth, really cool person you are to speak to.
Well, thank you. No, likewise. I agree with you.
In this business, it's not always the deal, you know?
Yeah.
So
Well, that's the other thing too, is, putting our egos in transactions never works. I mean,
no.
it just never works. So one thing I learned early on is, it's okay to have an ego, but like understand that's, when it rears its ugly head, like it's not good.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the other stuff that I try to do, like I mentioned earlier, like the whole morning routine kind of thing, like helps me realize, hey, like, why am I taking myself so seriously so as to stress myself out
Right.
about this? Not to say that I don't get stressed out, I do, but just like that self-talk is kind of the self-talk that I bring. And it's like, hey, you know what? I mean, one of the best things, I've got a deal that I'm working on right now where some realtors at a different company want me to co-list a property with them. I have another realtor at another company that's asked me to co-list a property with him that I have listed right now.
Right.
And it's like, I didn't even think that would be a deal flow for me, but just by being a nice person and having good ethics and treating people with respect. And it's like, man, like, it's not rocket science,
Right.
but unfortunately in our business, we see a lot of the realtors let their ego and let their attitudes and let their stress, and how, crazy life is get to them.
Right.
And take it on everybody else.
Right. Absolutely.
Including their clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question I have for you, and I could, man, I really wish I could be like a 3-hour podcast. We could do like a Joe Rogan marathon podcast with you. Got all the formalities out of the way, and I just want to like talk to you. If it's a new agent out there watching, and they want to get into the niche world of sports and entertainment, high-end real estate, and they're just getting started, and they don't, where would you advise them to start if they want to really work in that market?
It isn't any one thing, Michael. I think it's really like figuring out what it is that you want to do. Because if you want to work in sports entertainment or equestrian or, mid-century modern, whatever the niche is, like just really get to know it, understand it from the perspective of the people that you're trying to serve. Because if you assume what people need or what that niche needs, you may get it all wrong. But it's like humble yourself and try to really understand, try to be like a servant to these people, to this client group that you're trying to serve, because then it'll come through. Yeah, it's going to take a long time. There's no easy way to do it. I mean, if there is, let me know. But it's cold calling. It takes some of the stuff that takes guts, but if you're going to cold call, then like, when you get the opportunity, be damn good about it and be responsive. Don't coast. Like,
right.
The thing is with this business, it's, you got to sustain it for the long term, because we all reach burnout. I've had it many times in my career, and it's always when I'm just not keeping my eye on the ball and I'm trying to do too many things, and things just build, and I don't catch it soon enough. And then I'm like, man, this sucks.
Right.
But it is a beautiful business. And I think you got to do it in a way that works for you. Because if you're doing something, like there's real estate coaches that say, you got to be doing what you don't want to do when no one else is doing it. But, like, I don't vibe with that. I do business. It's already stressful enough. So do business in a way that works for you. Like, I don't like to buy leads on Zillow. I mean, I don't want to get calls from people I don't know like that. I don't want to do so many other things. Like, I like building relationships with people. And so I've gone deep into that. And by going deep into that means I have to read a lot. That means I have to listen to podcasts. That means, but I don't have to. I like it. I want to be interesting. I want to be able to talk with anybody about anything and learn from people. And I think that's like the beautiful thing. So that's just me. So I would just say, be creative, be authentic to yourself, do it in a way that you feel inspired to do it. You don't have to do a million things. You can go very deep into one or two ways of doing it. Give yourself some patience, give yourself some time, some self-love, and be creative about it. And I think that's like the secret sauce.
Yeah. So one of the biggest leaders of lifestyle, Ben Moss, any book recommendations for us professionals or any professional out there that we're going to have on or listening?
I've read a bunch of books this year. I just finished one that's really like amazing. It's called The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck.
Okay.
And The Road Less Traveled, I think, is a famous poem, but this book is The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck, who's a psychiatrist, and really nothing to do with real estate. So if you're looking for a real estate book, then that's definitely not it. But again, it has everything to do with real estate.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole nuance here is like every book you read involves your life, because real estate is our lifestyle as realtors. Like we can't separate it, as we know. If we try, then we're resisting, and then it's like, I'm not saying don't have boundaries. You got to have some boundaries for family time and kids and phone and all that stuff. But
Right.
but it's a lifestyle. Like embrace it, you know. So
Yeah.
The Real Less Traveled. I'm doing an audiobook right now on one. It's called Breathe by James Nestor. And I mentioned that I do some breath stuff, and so I'm really trying to learn a lot more about that. I'm taking a course on breath work.
Yeah.
From, like an Indian yogi master, and I'm really trying to figure out more of that kind of stuff because it's like Dr. Weil, who well-known doctor in Arizona, and he was interviewed once years ago. And I remember reading, and he said, you know, if you could say one thing for overall health to people, what would it be? And he said, learn how to breathe. And that always struck me. I was like, damn, learn how to breathe. What the hell does that even mean? You know? And so over the years, I've been trying to like learn more and more about that. So I think it's this free thing that we don't have to pay money for, that that we can control and manipulate. And there's a lot of health benefits to it. So especially reducing stress.
I think in the field we work in, with the clientele we work in, I think you've had so much success over such a long period of time and continue to go forward, and you will continue. You've adapted so many of these great techniques to be able to help you deal with some of the stuff that you can't control. And by dealing with them, you make yourself so much better. So what I want to just do here is, because we're running out of time, is there any question that I didn't ask you or anything that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. So where, Ben Moss, the man, the myth, the legend, where can people find you, get a hold of you?
I'm not the best on social media. So I mentioned earlier that's you got to do what you love to do. So
that's okay.
I'm not as good as I am on that, but I'm on Instagram and Facebook and, you know, email, cell phone. I mean, my website is benmossgroup.com. So that's the easiest way.
So we'll do is in the description, we'll put some other contact information for you to reach on the other social media sites. But if they really want to find out a little bit more about you, get a hold of you, all your information is on benmossgroup.com.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Moss, benmossgroup.com. Check them out. Thank you so much for being on this podcast. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate your time, man.
Thank you.